So your first step is to pick your piece of wood, and you guys have already done this. I actually went camping this weekend and I found this piece of wood in the St. Louis River at Jay Cook State Park, and I liked it. I think it's a piece of wood that's been manufactured, and it's maybe from a table or from a pallet, but I love to build things, so I think it's kind of neat that it looks like a weathered piece of driftwood now, even though at some point someone maybe bought it from Home Depot. During class today, you'll have the option to come out and work with Miss Alyssa to do some sanding or to do some nailing into your board as you start to decide how to decorate it and make it unique. When you get your talking piece, you want to look for any edges that may be sharp or would possibly give people any splinters. And these are the edges that you're going to want to sand. Remember, the talking piece is something that a lot of people are going to handle, so you want to make sure that it's not going to hurt them and it'll be comfortable in their hands. So I'm going to sand this a little bit, get any of the jagged edges. Some of you guys won't have this, some of you guys will, and sometimes the jagged edges you can sand a little bit, but then just leave and do some interesting patterns with. Another option you have is to do some hammering. We have a couple types of nails that we have in many quantities. This one is kind of a little brad. It has a really small head on it. And then this one is a roofing nail with a large head on it. This one you see more, and this one would be easier to hide. I'm going to take my nails, let's see, and I'm going to find a surface where I can do 3 in a row, and I'm going to add a little bit of a decorative element here. So I'm going to hammer this down in. Remember, you hold the nail and hammer lightly and then move it once the nail is in there. And I'm just going to pick 3 roofing nails and space them about 1 inch apart. And I think that this could make a cool decorative element. I could hang some beads from these. I could hang some yarn from them. I could paint them. I don't know. So here's my hammering. We're not going to let you do too much hammering because we have to get through a few hundred kids with this project, but a few nails and a few minutes outside for the sanding and hammering, and then you can go do the inside painting. Another option for your talking stick is to paint it. You want to make sure that you have a paper down on your table when you paint, and you're going to have some brushes in a bucket and then also a bucket of paint. Your brushes always have to be in either the bucket of water or the bucket of paint, or else they'll dry up and be ruined. So for day 1, your job is to do some background painting, big colors in the background, and then the next day, day 2, we'll do more detailed drawing. So I'm going to do 2 different ways that you can paint on your wood, and then we'll finish up for day 1. Option 1 is just to paint a straight solid color, and I'm going to use this side. It got a little bit wet, but I'm going to go with white, because I feel like when I start with white, then I kind of create a blank canvas effect. When you dip your brush in the paint, you want to dip it in, and then you want to wipe off the brush like this. So here's my paint thing. I'm going to wipe off my brush on both sides like this so it doesn't drip, and then bring it over to my wood. You can't be very exact with wood when you're doing this painting. It's okay to be a little bit messy, and it's okay to do 1 layer or 2 layers if you have time. I'm going to do white, and then when this dries next class, I can go over this with other colors and they'll really show up. Or I can just take a black Sharpie and write straight on top of this and do some drawings and some cartoons, maybe some kind of hieroglyph, symbols. Okay, so here's my white surface. I'm going to go paint another color, and then when this dries, I could come back and do another coat of white to make it even brighter. The second technique is doing what's called a stain. I'm going to load my brush with some paint. In this case, I have a magenta. Then I'm going to dip my brush in some water. So I'm going to have a real watery paint. And when I go to paint onto my wood, it's going to be staining the wood pink. So it's going to be real wet, but it's going to allow me to see the grain and the natural lines in the wood underneath the paint. So it's kind of like you're just tinting the wood. You're not covering up the grain of the wood, and it can look neat. It can look really natural, staining wood. It can look really old and antique, and I kind of like that idea, especially since this piece that I found is so old. All the wood I got for you guys is also old wood, so you know, staining it gives it a kind of a ancient feel, like it's been out in the rain and the weather for the winters. So here's the stain that I painted a couple hours later, and you can see how the color shows in through the grain of the wood. So it still looks like wood, but you can see that kind of magenta maroon color. And if you still have time before the class ends, you could do some kind of beginning decorative elements. One thing I really like to do with acrylic paints is create stripes. So I'm just going to pick a few of my favorite colors and do some stripes. Right here the wood kind of breaks. And I'll do white, and then I'll skip a little bit and do white again. So I'll do some different colors in between the two whites. Maybe I'll do white over here too. Then I'll go back and I'll pick a different color and do that in between the whites. Another option is to start to paint shapes. You could do some repeated circles or triangles. You could do a crisscross pattern. Some of these ideas we should save for day 2 though, because you'll have smaller brushes day 2 and need to do some more of the detail work day 2. And the detail work does take a long time. And finally, I'm going to leave some of my wood just its original color. I'm not going to paint it. So I'm going to do this side, original color, and here. And I think that that kind of speaks to where the wood came from, what the wood was like in its original state. Maybe thinking about a talking piece and how a talking piece transforms. So this would be kind of where you come from, and then some of your decorations would be where you're headed. And don't forget that you have to attach your pipe cleaner somewhere so that we know whose stick this is, and then make sure that we put it on the shelf for our class. And when you set it down, if the paint is wet, set it on a different side so that the paint can dry and it won't stick to the paper on the shelf. Okay, that's day 1, everybody. Have fun, get creative.